Hi everyone, I have another video for you today. I have 2 more Reddit stories. I hope you enjoy. Here is the title of the first story. I threw my daughter's boyfriend out after he tried to pressure her into a serious commitment at her birthday, and what happened next shattered our relationship. It's not often that something happens that completely alters the course of a relationship, but what happened that night has stuck with me. It's been a few weeks now, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around the audacity of what I witnessed. The nerve of some people. Let me set the stage for you. My daughter, Emily, was turning 21. It's a milestone, right? The kind of birthday that signifies a new chapter in life. She's been dating this guy, Tyler, for the better part of a year now. He's always seemed like a nice enough guy. Nothing too spectacular, but decent. He was polite, respectful, if a little quiet, and I figured he was a good fit for her. Emily had invited a few close friends over for her birthday dinner at our house, and naturally, Tyler was going to be there. I didn't have any concerns, until the night went horribly wrong. The evening started off well enough. The house was decorated with balloons, a big happy birthday banner across the living room. Emily had been looking forward to this celebration for weeks, and I was happy to see her so excited. There were only a few of her friends, her mom and I, and of course Tyler. The mood was light, the food was delicious, and everyone was having a good time. We even got Emily to open her presents early, and Tyler seemed genuinely thrilled about it all. I remember watching him from across the room. He had this awkward smile on his face as Emily tore through the wrapping paper, laughing and commenting on how thoughtful the gifts were. He didn't seem out of place. But then something shifted. We were all sitting around the table, talking, when Tyler suddenly stood up and raised his glass, making an announcement. At first I thought it was just a toast, which, was normal for a 21st birthday. But it quickly became clear this wasn't just any toast. Tyler had a look in his eyes that I hadn't seen before. It was like a mixture of pride, excitement, and something else. It didn't sit right with me. All right, everyone," Tyler said, clearing his throat. "I've got a little surprise for Emily. Now, I'm not an unreasonable person. I'm all for surprises, especially for my daughter." But something in the way he said it raised a red flag. There was this smug confidence to his voice that made me uneasy. "Emily," he began, looking at her with a grin that I thought seemed a little too wide. "I've been thinking a lot about us. About our future. And I wanted to give you a gift that you could really remember." At this point, I figured he was about to give her some heartfelt, sentimental gift. Maybe a necklace or a framed picture of the two of them. I don't know, something like that. But what he did next completely blindsided me. Tyler pulled out a small box from his jacket pocket and placed it in front of Emily. She looked confused, but intrigued. She took the box from him, slowly, and opened it. My heart sank as I saw what was inside. A ring. It wasn't a wedding ring, thank God. But it was clearly an engagement ring. A damn big one, too. I immediately felt the room's temperature shift. There was a sudden tension in the air. Emily's face froze, her hands still holding the box but no longer moving. She looked up at Tyler, speechless. I could see the gears turning in her head, trying to process what was happening. For a split second, I could feel her shock radiating off of her. "Tyler, what is this?" she finally managed to ask, her voice barely above a whisper. His grin widened. "It's a promise ring. A sign of our commitment to each other. I want you to know that I'm serious about us, Emily. And I want everyone here to know it, too. This is just the first step. The first of many." I could feel the heat rise in my face. I knew what he was doing. He was trying to trap her, to put pressure on her in front of everyone, on her birthday no less. This wasn't a moment of love or romance. This was a power move. Tyler was staking his claim on her, making sure everyone knew that he was in control. Emily's reaction wasn't what I expected. She blinked a few times, looking at the ring then at me. I could see the confusion and the panic in her eyes. She clearly wasn't ready for this. Hell, I wasn't even sure if she was in love with him. I'd seen her hesitate about their relationship before, and this move, this grand gesture, only seemed to add more pressure. Tyler, this is a bit much, Emily said, her voice faltering. I don't think I'm ready for this. Not now, Tyler's face twitched. The smile that had been so confident moments before started to fade, replaced by something darker. I could feel the room holding its breath, waiting for what would come next. Not ready? Tyler asked, his tone shifting, no longer sweet and smooth. It became sharp, almost accusatory. What do you mean, not ready? You've been saying we're serious. You've been telling everyone how much you care about me. We've been together for almost a year, Emily. What more do you need to be ready? The change in his demeanor was instantaneous. It was as though the mask he'd been wearing slipped off completely. Tyler's eyes narrowed, and I saw the edge in his words. I was getting angrier by the second, but I kept my cool. For now, I think I'm ready to go, Emily muttered, standing up quickly, the ring still sitting open in her hand. Her voice was small, but the message was clear. She didn't want this. Not here, not now. She didn't know what Tyler was trying to pull, but it was becoming painfully obvious to everyone in the room. Tyler stood up too, his movements suddenly tense. What the hell does that mean, Emily? You don't just reject a gift like this. You don't just walk away from me like that. I could feel my blood boiling now. I knew this guy was pushing it, but this was crossing the line. I stood up from my seat and approached the two of them. That's enough, Tyler, I said, my voice cold. You need to leave. Tyler looked at me stunned. For a brief moment, he seemed almost confused by my sudden authority. Then he quickly turned his gaze back to Emily, his expression shifting from surprise to something darker. No, he spat, almost under his breath. She's making a mistake. You don't know what she needs. No, Tyler. I shot back. You don't get to pressure her like this. You don't get to pull this stunt on her birthday, in front of her friends and family. You don't control her. You don't get to put her on the spot like that, especially not in front of everyone. Dad, Emily said quietly, her voice breaking. Please, just let him go. She was right. It was clear now that Tyler wasn't the right guy for her. His behavior had crossed a line, and I wasn't about to let it slide. He wasn't the person I wanted my daughter to be with, and I was done standing by while he tried to manipulate her. I turned to Tyler one last time. Get out now. For a moment, Tyler seemed like he was going to argue further. His face flushed, his fists clenched, and I thought for a second he might try something physical. But then, to my surprise, he scoffed and backed away. You'll regret this, he muttered, grabbing his jacket off the chair and storming out the door. The door slammed behind him, and the room was left in a heavy silence. The sounds of his departure echoed in my mind, and for a second, I felt this overwhelming urge to just go after him, make him pay for the way he treated my daughter. But no, that would have been just what he wanted. He wanted to provoke me, to make me lose my cool. And I wasn't going to give him that satisfaction. I walked over to Emily, who was standing there, her eyes welling with tears. I pulled her into a hug, holding her tightly. I'm sorry, sweetie, I whispered. You don't have to do anything you're not ready for. I know, Dad, she said, her voice trembling. I didn't know how to say no. Well, now you don't have to worry about it, I said, brushing a tear from her cheek. He's gone. And just like that, I realized how far I would go to protect my daughter. No matter what. No one was going to hurt her, not on my watch. The next few days were a blur. Tyler didn't call, didn't try to reach out. Emily didn't speak to him either. And honestly, I was relieved. She needed space to process everything. To think. After a few days, she finally sat me down, her eyes tired but determined. Dad, she started, I don't know what to do. I feel like I've wasted so much time with him. I feel like I'm not strong enough to walk away. I smiled softly, proud of her. Sweetheart, walking away doesn't make you weak. It makes you strong. And you don't owe anyone an explanation for wanting to take care of yourself. It wasn't an easy decision, and I knew Emily was torn, but I could see the weight lifting off her shoulders. Sometimes, it takes something drastic to realize what's best for you. In the end, Tyler wasn't the one for her, and that was clear. But the real lesson for me was learning just how far I would go to stand up for my daughter, to protect her from the people who might try to manipulate or hurt her. Tyler had thought he could control the situation, but in the end, it was me who made sure he didn't, and I'd do it all over again if it meant keeping my daughter safe from people like him. That is the end of the first story. A surprise engagement to trap your partner is such a twisted thing. Especially doing that in front of family to push her towards saying yes. What a slimy person. Let's get to the next story. Here is the title. I found out my best friend was hiding something horrible about his past, and it destroyed our friendship. I always thought I knew everything about my best friend, Marcus. We've known each other since elementary school, shared secrets, laughed at stupid jokes, survived high school together, and even got through college as roommates. He's the kind of guy who would drop everything if I needed him, and I'd do the same for him without a second thought. We were inseparable, or so I thought. I never suspected that there was something lurking beneath the surface. Something so dark and twisted that it would shatter the trust we'd built for years. It all started when I invited him over for dinner one evening. My girlfriend, Sarah, and I had recently moved into a new apartment, and we thought it would be a great idea to host a small get-together. A casual dinner, some drinks, and just catching up. It had been a while since we'd all hung out, so I was looking forward to it. We'd invited a few friends, and Marcus was one of the first on the guest list. He was like family. The evening started off like any other. We were sitting around the table, laughing, chatting about work, relationships, and just general life updates. Sarah was joking about how I'd managed to spill spaghetti on my shirt, and Marcus was cracking jokes in his usual laid-back, easygoing way. Everything felt normal. Comfortable. There was no hint of what was about to unfold. After dinner, we moved into the living room, and that's when it started. It was a typical Saturday night, so we put on a movie, something lighthearted, a comedy. But Marcus seemed a little off. He wasn't his usual self. Every now and then, I'd catch him staring at the TV with a far-off look in his eyes, as if his mind was elsewhere. I didn't think much of it at first. It could have been work stress, or maybe he was just tired. But as the night wore on, I noticed something else. He was getting quieter, withdrawing from the group more and more. I decided to pull him aside for a quick chat in the kitchen. "Hey man, you okay?" I asked, pouring myself a glass of water. He hesitated, his hands lingering on the counter. "Yeah, I'm fine. Just been thinking a lot, you know?" "About what?" Marcus looked at me, his face suddenly tight with something I couldn't read. For a moment, he seemed like he was going to say something, but then he just shook his head. "Never mind. It's nothing." I didn't push it. Marcus wasn't the type to talk about his feelings easily, and I knew better than to pry too much. But something didn't sit right. I knew my friend, and this wasn't like him. It was like there was a wall between us that hadn't been there before. We went back to the living room, and I thought that would be the end of it. But then, about an hour later, Marcus excused himself to use the bathroom. He'd had a few drinks, so I figured it was nothing unusual. But when he came back, he didn't sit down on the couch with the rest of us. Instead, he stood by the window, staring out into the night. I was starting to get worried. Something was going on with him, and I had no idea what. I looked over at Sarah, who was still watching the movie, then back at Marcus. I could see his jaw clenched, his body tense. He was clearly struggling with something, and it wasn't just the alcohol. I finally decided to approach him again. I walked over to the window, standing beside him, unsure of what to say. The silence stretched between us, thick with unspoken words. "You can talk to me, man," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "What's going on? You're not yourself tonight." For a long moment, he didn't respond. He just stared out the window, his expression unreadable. And then, finally, he spoke. "I didn't want to tell you this," he said quietly, his voice barely a whisper. "I didn't want to ruin everything, but I can't keep it in anymore." I turned to look at him, my heart starting to race. "What do you mean?" He turned to face me then, his eyes dark with guilt. "I've been running from my past for years, Jake. And I don't know if I can do it anymore. I hurt someone, Jake. Someone I loved. someone I shouldn't have. And it's been eating me alive. I froze, the words barely registering in my mind. Marcus wasn't the type of guy who'd hurt anyone, certainly not someone he cared about. He'd been through his fair share of struggles, sure, but he wasn't violent or cruel. This didn't make sense. Wait, what do you mean? What happened? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He turned to face me again, his eyes wide and pleading. Not badly. Not in the way you're probably thinking, but enough to leave a mark. I pushed her. I hit her. I didn't mean to. I never wanted to hurt her, but in the heat of the moment, I lost myself. And I've been carrying that guilt with me ever since. The room felt suffocating. I couldn't process it. Marcus was the last person I would have ever expected to do something like this. He wasn't violent. He wasn't that guy. But as I looked into his eyes, I saw the pain and the shame, and I knew he wasn't lying. This was real. I've been running from it, Jake, he continued, his voice cracking. I've tried to bury it, to convince myself that it was a mistake, that I'd never do it again. But I can't live like this anymore. I had to tell you. I had to come clean. I stood there, staring at him, the weight of his confession crushing me. The silence stretched on between us, and I didn't know what to say. There was so much running through my head, anger, disbelief, confusion. But most of all, I felt betrayed. This was my best friend, the guy I'd known my whole life, the guy I thought I could trust with anything. And now, everything had changed. I don't know what to say, Marcus, I finally muttered, my voice hoarse. This is a lot. I can't believe you kept this from me. I know. I didn't want to hurt you, Jake. I didn't want you to look at me differently. I don't know how to look at you right now, I admitted, my words bitter. How could you hide something like this? How could you let it go on for so long? I don't know, he said, his voice full of regret. I was scared. Scared of losing everyone, scared of what people would think. I thought if I kept quiet, if I pretended it didn't happen, maybe I could just move on with my life. But I couldn't. We stood in silence, neither of us knowing what to say next. And in that moment, something changed. I didn't know if our friendship could survive this. How could I look at Marcus the same way again after what he told me? How could I trust him the way I had before? The rest of the night was a blur. I didn't even bother to go back to the living room. Marcus eventually left, and Sarah and I didn't say much to each other. I just sat there, replaying his words over and over in my head, trying to make sense of it all. But no matter how many times I thought about it, I couldn't shake the feeling that everything had been destroyed in that moment. A friendship that had lasted for over a decade, gone in the blink of an eye. I don't know what's going to happen between Marcus and me. I don't know if I can forgive him. I don't know if I want to. But what I do know is that, in that moment, I lost a piece of the person I thought he was. And maybe I lost a piece of myself, too. That is the end of the story. Hearing my best friend admit to hitting a woman would break me in such a certain way. That would put me into a daze of just pure confusion of how he could do something like that. If he just did it for no reason. I hope you enjoyed the stories. There is a link in the description for my Reddit Stories playlist. Go watch them if you like. Have a great day.